What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and you may think that Jack Dorsey stepping down at Twitter is something to celebrate, but I assure you, this is not a good thing. This is a very bad thing for what is already a cesspool of shadow banning, censorship, and uneven enforcement of rules. These things are only going to get far worse. Jack Dorsey, for a long time, if you watch the decisions he's made in terms of freedom of speech and allowing controversial figures to keep their platform, he's long been the last man standing against the woke outrage mob who demands bannings. We can look quite simply at his handling of Donald Trump or his handling of Alex Jones. Alex being the last, Twitter being the last platform that held Alex, and Jack stood up for him when everyone else was just banning him anyway. Now, he eventually folded. We're talking about, Jack Dorsey's the smartest kid on the short bus. I'm not saying the guy's a kind of, First Amendment warrior and somebody that should be looked up to. But I'm saying is, with Parag taking over, things are about to get very bad. And I'm going to show you exactly why. If we look at the media's coverage of this, we have Twitter CTO, Parag Agarwal, will replace Jack Dorsey as CEO. Now, Parag is a CTO, Chief Technical Officer. He's not like a HR guy. In fact, he's got a lot, if you peruse his Twitter, he talks a lot about blockchain and technological issues and things like that. But he's also got some very interesting posts, which I will share with you. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey stepping down as chief of the social media company. Twitter CEO is stepping down as chief of social media company effective immediately. Parag Agarwal, the company's chief technology officer, will take over the helm. He's got an interesting past too, which we're going to talk about. Now, Jack Dorsey, 45, was serving as both the CEO of Twitter and Square, which is another Silicon Valley company that uses people's political affiliations to persecute them from using their service after they have a monopoly. His digital payment company, Dorsey, will remain a member of the board until his term expires in 2022, meeting with stockholders, the company said. Salesforce president and CEO Bret Taylor will become the chairman of the board, replacing Patrick Pichette, a former Google executive who will remain on the board as chair of the audit committee. Quote, "I've decided to leave Twitter because I believe the company is ready to move on from its founders," Dorsey said in a statement, though he didn't provide any additional detail on why he resigned. Now, is there some sort of mystery abound here? Is there a secret reason why he's resigning? Well, I suppose we'll find out in time, but ultimately, I imagine once you've amassed a type of wealth. Now, make no mistake, Jack Dorsey is not rich. He is wealthy. And he steps down as CEO with maintaining all of his shares, I imagine, and profit sharing. This guy has an enormous amount of money, and he doesn't need to work. Between that and Square and probably all the other small companies he owns that has digital monopolies on the industry, I mean, you got to retire sometime, unless you're Clint Eastwood, apparently. Now, the new CEO, served as CTO since 2017, has been with Twitter for more than a decade. He's been in charge of strategy involving intelligence, machine learning, and he's led projects to make tweets and users' timelines more relevant to them, or you could just say algorithm, I suppose. He was previously tasked with finding a leader for Project Blue Sky, a research project Twitter launched to establish open and decentralized standards for social media platforms. Dorsey had previously said Blue Sky will help social media companies collaborate on how posts are promoted to users and will give users more control over the content they see. Blue Sky could also make it easier for social networks to enforce restrictions against hate speech, which isn't a thing, and other meanness, essentially helping them share the load at a lower cost. It's a censorship AI, right? He held research internships at AT&T, Microsoft, and Yahoo prior to joining Twitter. Dorsey said in an email he published to Twitter that he has been his choice to lead the company for some time, given how deeply he understands the company and its needs. Dorsey faced an ousting last year when Twitter stakeholder Elliott Management had sought to replace him. Elliott Management founder and billionaire investor Paul Singer had wondered whether Dorsey should run both of the public companies. Singer called for Dorsey to step down as CEO of one of them before the investment firm reached a deal with Twitter's management. Essentially, these people have so much money, so many dollars invested, that they can literally make changes, requests at the highest levels. What's interesting is if we look back, shares jumped 85% since Dorsey took over as CEO on October 5th, 2015. Square has surged 1,600% since its initial public offering on October 19th of the same year. The man has money. But why is he stepping down? Well, it's clear that he wants to pursue some sort of future in a metal band or as some sort of yogi in the desert. Maybe he'll come up with his own series of diet cleanses and things of that nature. But look, I don't care for Jack Dorsey. I don't think he cares about the First Amendment. I don't think he cares about the platform that he created. I think he created it and at some point decided that he didn't want the political responsibility. A man that looks like this with his nose piercing and his nose hair clearly untrimmed, an unkempt beard and greasy hair slicked back. You think this guy wants to be the CEO of Twitter and Squaresoft or Squarespace for his entire life? Absolutely not. He wanted out and he got out. But what's curious is if we look at the new CEO, okay, you can see his timeline already updated to CEO at Twitter. That took about 8 seconds. He's gained an enormous number of followers today, I'm guessing. I was just thinking about looking at that. He had 22,000 before. I think he's got, what, 62,000 now? I suppose he'll... Oh, I already was following him. So, I mean, he's going to instantly be thrust into the spotlight. He writes, deep gratitude for Jack and our entire team. So much excitement for the future. Here's a note I sent to the company. Thank you all for your trust and support. I'm not going to read the whole thing. He simply writes, thank you, Jack. I'm honored and humbled. I'm grateful for your continued mentorship and friendship. I'm grateful for the service you've built, the culture, the soul, and purpose you have fostered among us, and for leading the company through really significant changes. The world is watching us right now, even more than they have before. Lots of people are going to have lots of different views and opinions about today's news. It's because they care about the Twitter and our future. And it's a signal that the work we do here matters. Let's show the world Twitter's full potential. Well, as a censorship machine, you know this because initially, the stock surged on the news. Twitter stock prices surged more than 11% at reports of Jack Dorsey's exit. What does that tell you? People are investing their money because they weren't happy with what he was doing. And I don't ever want to be on the same side as Wall Street for the most part these days, because it seems like much of their investments are politically motivated. That's why I was such a fan of the meme stocks and kind of individuals taking over the market again. But what has happened since then, here you see this morning, 9:30 a.m. It's the highest the stock has been in a very long time. But the stock's gone nothing but down over the last 6 months. Here's the announcement this morning, and ever since, it gave back all of that and more. Why do we think that is? Well, maybe because the guy who's taking over has said things like this in the past. Former CTO and new Twitter CEO, Agrawal, I don't care. In November 2020 interview, our role is not to be bound by the First Amendment, focusing less on thinking about free speech, but thinking about how the times have changed. Yikes. Yikes. Here's another interesting tweet of his. If they're not going to make a distinction between Muslims and those that have extreme views, then why should I distinguish between white people and racists? Oopsie. This guy's worse than Jack Dorsey ever was. Like, significantly worse. And we still don't have a viable excuse. People can talk about Parler all day long. The platform still sucks. Do I have a profile? By the way, I have a profile at Parler, and I have one on Gab, and I hate Gab's owner. His opinions. I don't know him personally. So if you use this alt tech, if you're like, yeah, whatever, I don't care, I use Parler, whatever, I don't care, I use Gab, follow me there, because I'm going to start using them more and more now, because the biggest problems with Twitter are only about to get far, far worse. I believe that you could see RIP Twitter, 143,000 tweets. I mean, it's exactly what you would expect. Here, RIP Twitter and any semblance of free speech on this platform. Once this stuff came out, I don't know if the timing was specifically related, but sure is coincidental that the stock plummeted immediately. It's like a bunch of people, you see Nuance Bro says, yep, just like I said, Jack Dorsey leaves and someone even more woke replaces him. RIP Twitter. Yeah, there's Gab and Parler, and I recommend you at least create profiles there and try to use them like every couple of days if you're a social media person. Just like if you use Facebook, you should be using Minds at least once in a while, because the more of us that commit to actively breaking the habitual uses of things like Facebook and Twitter and mix in these other platforms, the better chance we'll have a true challenger to these behemoths that are only concerned with their own political ideologies and censoring people just as much as they possibly can. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.